Dirty Mouf.
What's up, Geeziz?
We are the Masterblasterpodcasters. Welcome to our show. Everything recording, right? Everything's good to go?
Yeah, as far as this way of doing it, yeah.
Cool. All right, excellent. All right, so thank you for joining us. We're here to talk about woke politics. I just understood, first of all, we wanted to define it. My understanding, we both looked up the definition. My understanding is just it's the awareness of facts and issues, especially those related to racial and social injustice. DM, do you have anything to add to that definition? Any other things that would define the term?
No, that's pretty much sums it up. And then, that's pretty much it.
So to start speaking about the subject, it's obviously a huge term that's being used on both sides, actually. It's positive on the left side, and it's somehow negative on the right side.
Right.
To be aware of facts and issues that have to do with basically, DM, that basically non-straight white people, I guess, right? As far as like my understanding of it, it's just being like what you said. I think it's more about like evolving. I think it pertains to. You could apply it to poor white people too. Just the facts of like what's going on with poor white people, like, and just being honest of their situation. Yeah, which is unbelievable because it seems like in today's America, maybe it's always been like that. A lot of poor America seem to be voting against their own interests, right. Which is it's always been astounding to me. But what I'd like to do to begin when we talk about being woke or identity politics is to sort of surmise everything that goes into being like, who are the groups that we're talking about? I break it down to three different groups that can be the pinnacle or the beginning of an awareness of these groups. Why are they fighting? Why are they doing what they're doing, saying what they're saying, taking the stances that they're taking? And I have three to begin with. Let's see if I'm sure you agree. We'll talk about these three groups.
Sure.
And the awareness that goes into what they have to do, what they've dealt with as far as bigotry and everything being held down in society with jobs and social status and financially and this and that. Number one, of course, is LGBTQIA+, which obviously there's big homophobia is a major thing attributed with that group.
Right.
Number two, and we'll go back and discuss these individually.
Yeah.
Number two, Black Lives Matter, I think is one we could put in there. Basically about racist agendas that have been propagated against, especially, African Americans. There's many other groups that could fit under peoples that need to be properly represented, so they're not misrepresented. When you talk about, obviously, there's been some real anti-Asian sentiments going around since COVID, and we go back to 9/11 too, and go back to a huge problem that Americans had with Middle Eastern people.
Right, Islamophobia is huge.
Yeah, where all of a sudden it became okay to call people slurs related to their Middle Eastern heritage. The last one would be the Me Too movement, which is about, of course, sexism. So we got homophobia, racism, sexism.
Right.
Three things that have plagued America and the world. We're talking about America. Now, DM, if you want to talk about first, and you can go off in any direction you want, but maybe the history, a little bit of LGBTQIA, why they need to be represented as far as people to be aware of what they've gone through, what they're going through, and how to properly maybe address them, proper terms, things that are not proper. Yeah.
That's pretty good. Well, I mean, for up until like, well, my entire life, up until like, you know, in the past, probably 2009, 10, and like somewhat of the Obama administration, basically, like the gay and trans community have been either vilified and discriminated against. There was always been laws written against them, vilified with like religious groups, you know, just demonized, you know, always portrayed as like evil or insidious or, you know, pedophilic, you know, like there's an assumption that for some reason that gay, you know, women or men and trans folks are pedophiles, and it's in the history, you know, it has been, you know, nearly wiped out, unless you're aware of like certain aspects of the cultures. Like you don't really realize it, because the only time you see any gay or trans representation, it's either like with Bugs Bunny, and he'd pop on you know, he'd always change. You know, trans people have always been made fun of, where men would go and, you know, dress in drag, and it was always a joke, which I never really understood. That just wasn't my cup of tea as far as humor. And then, you know, also the phobia, to the point where, you know, people were murdered, you know, forced out of their jobs, forced out of their families. The history, I mean, gay people and trans people have always been around. We just never acknowledged them as a society. And I think I think there's just been a push to just tell the truth, you know, let's look at our history for real. And let's hear the voices of some of these people, and be more accepting of them in our society. I think that right now, especially, you have drag shows with neo-Nazis showing up. The shows end up being like just reading time, or you know, a show entertaining. There's nothing sexual. In my experience, I lived in, you know, here, even in, you know, I live in Juneau, there's drag shows every month. Nothing goes on. It's, you know, it's an adult environment. There's no kids there.
Right. Now, just for a second, DM, now in Florida, I believe, didn't they pass a law? Didn't DeSantis pass a law where you cannot, like, it's against a lot of cross-dress? I know that they've had problems doing. I know they've had problems doing boats or shows or you know, the same things that were done before, based off of you know, cross-dressers having a pride parade or something like that. It's not allowed.
Or pride,
which is
period.
Can you believe in 2023? You know, this has been going on for what, 30 years now? Gay pride parades, 40 years.
I've been to 6 pride parades in my life. Like when I lived in Chicago, and then here they had one as well. It's weird. Like, it's, you know, if you live in a city, if you live in New York, Chicago, LA, or whatever, the politicians will use it. They'll use pride parades to promote themselves. So it's just weird. Like in Florida, Ron DeSantis, who's running for president, which is scary, he basically is trying to wipe out woke. He's trying to basically kill, figuratively and politically, kill woke culture, gay culture, any history of non-white people, it seems. And so it's just, I think, right, you know, woke is just like, you know, learning and being aware of, like, of the most vulnerable communities in our country.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you say in Florida with Ron DeSantis running for president.
His entire campaign.
Running unsuccessfully.
Right.
Because if you look at, I think it's even the Rasmussen poll, if you look at, which is a Republican-friendly poll, he's way, way down from Trump as far as favorability amongst Republicans. And you know what? The number one reason why he's so far down is, Trump, of course he's lying about everything he says, but he's trying to say, oh, the economy, this, and the economy's doing great.
Right.
For some reason, people trust Trump with the economy, and he does. One of the few things he gets in between his speeches, in between all of the stop the steal bullshit, which is bullshit. It was a completely legitimate election that Biden won in 2020.
Right.
But one of the things that they don't like DeSantis for is this war on woke culture. Which even a lot of Republicans are saying they don't want that to be the major focus of the primaries for Republicans.
Even Trump, in one of his crazy fuck-up speeches, was like, I'm so tired of hearing about this shit. And I don't think he meant, to add to it, he was just like, enough with this shit. Because even he knows this is ridiculous. Like, you're just being paranoid. And it's like, he's like, So yeah, it's Ron DeSantis thing, and it's like he's stuck with it, and he thinks he tries to use Trump's technique of hatred, and it's just not working for him. Like he's very awkward. You see him in interviews, and you see him he whines a lot. He gets very defensive. He's very awkward around people. He's not, I don't know how he's trying to run for public office, and he's he's so hateful. I mean, this guy was a CIA lawyer. He was a naval lawyer, and he took pleasure in watching people get tortured in Guantanamo Bay. Like one of the prisoners commented how they remember his face, and DeSantis' reaction was like, "Oh, that's bullshit. How could he remember me?" And it's like, if you're being tortured by people, I don't think you ever forget the people who are fucking causing you that much fucking pain and horror and trauma and trauma. And so it's like,
tell that to the Jewish people when they talk about that. That's the first thing they talked about is his face.
They can describe for you every fucking detail. So it's like he's a cruel and a very odd person. And basically Florida, you could, not to veer off, but real quick, his policies aren't working so bad that you have so many people leaving that now I work in a grocery store. I can't say which one, but we're being affected because whatever vegetation, whatever is being sent from Florida, now they're having issues because for a while, all these truckers, because of not all of them are here legally, now are protesting, and it's affecting it's affecting production. You have people who aren't in farms now because they've been deported. So it's just it's a combination. But initially, woke is just this thing that the Republicans have attached to, and they can't even. The funny thing is, they can't even clearly define the shit. So it's like you're not even talking about your enemy properly because you don't even know what the fuck that is.
Yeah, and one thing you mentioned earlier about obviously. Bigotry against the group has been long-standing in our country. But if you remember 15 years ago, in 2008 was when Obama won his first presidency. Right. In 2012 was the second. Mm-hmm. A lot of people thought the country was progressing in the right way.
Right, they just assumed, yeah.
Yeah, and it's obviously since then there's been a certain somebody in a certain party that's inflamed these ambers of hatred throughout our country, and certainly the LGBTQ, which was actually a group that Trump lied about during his primary in 2016 and said he was going to fight for them. Oh, we'll all be together, we'll all be one big happy family. Right. And then they were one of the first groups he actually went after when he got to be president. So it's something that it's really inflamed, stirred up a lot of hatred in the country, and it's something we find ourselves taking steps back after taking steps forward. Yeah. So we thought we had corrected these kind of things.
Right, or at least we're on our way to evolving anyway.
Yeah. Now, what I'd like to talk about is what's your opinion on the most recent, this is going back a couple months now, but the Bud Light commercial where they have a spokesperson, obviously, that is trans, and it's set up this huge fury in the right wing. It's massively hurt Bud Light's sales. Although, ironically, Kid Rock, of course, released a video of him shooting a bunch of Bud Light cans with his AR-15.
Right.
Coincidentally, though, in his bar in Tennessee, they still serve Bud Light.
Right.
How about that?
Yeah, I know.
Because it's just a popular beer. So what a big stance he made, huh?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. It's like one of the things, if you're like a conservative company, if your owner, your CEO is conservative, or that's kind of the heir to your that's the market you're choosing for is bigots. They're going to affect your money, but you can find that when you evolve and you have a more open market and you're trying to sell to everybody, you're going to make more money because you have more people buying your shit. And if they go, wow, this company, cool, you're taking, they're evolving and they're going to, move forward with us, fucking cool, like beautiful. And it's like, I think when when all these people were freaking out about, what's that person's name? Dylan Mulvaney. All they did was really like bring this person to a more popular status and put the name out there. Now everybody knows. Like before, she was just, I think, a TikTok star, and now she's become a household name. I just think it's a matter of, like, you have people of a certain age group and a certain belief system of the past, and the reality is like that's not reality. That's not what's going on in the world, especially with like people in their, you can say, in their 30s and their 20s and even the teenagers, like they're beyond that shit. They're like, no, we're moving forward. Like, we're trying to figure out what's going on, and we want to change things because right now the system doesn't work. And they're when they do research on the history of things, they're kind of, I don't think they're too happy with like what's going on, like currently of our normal culture. It's like, wow, it's like, oh, so there were like non-white people during World War II and women, and there were gay people there. And there was even trans people. There were trans people during World War II. You have people who went and fought on the north and even on the bad side. And so it's like if you look at history.
There's trans. I'm sorry to interrupt you. There's trans. The head of the CIA was that's right. He was a cross-dresser.
Yeah, you talking about J. Edgar Hoover?
Yes.
Yeah, he was a closeted bigot, FBI, and he did a lot of damage to the civil rights groups and all. And it's like the guy even refused loving his boyfriend for like fucking 20 years.
Him and Roy Cohn, the two people, the center of the McCarthy hearings in I believe the 50s. Roy Cohn was a closeted gay guy too, and how about that? I mean, two people that, I'll tell you what, that's an example of, I think some people still aren't aware of this, but the stronger that somebody goes against a certain group usually means they're a closeted member of that group, and they're just embarrassed about it.
Yeah.
If you go that hard against like gay people, trans, then something was going on with you there, that you're trying to hide something.
The self-hatred is in the self-loathing is amazing because, like, I'll see these reports where it'll be a minister, a cop, a soldier, and they're the biggest, like, projectors of their self-hatred, and they put it on an entire group of people. Then you find out, like, they're calling gay people, groomers, and trans people groomers. Then you look, and it'll be like a minister who's collected thousands of like kiddie porn pics, or has been charged with like grooming a kid, or part of a sex trafficking ring, or yada yada yada. And you'll look like, oh, they're the ones complaining about it. they're a politician, they're writing, policies that go against it. And it's like, it's this hypocrisy, man, where it's just like, it's unbelievable. And and I learned that a long time ago. The most homophobic and hateful person towards gay people, whatever, you'll find, so it's like you can't deal with your own feelings of yourself. So you're going to fucking destroy a whole group of people that you are part of, but you don't want to be. And you're just going to hurt people. And it's sad. Like, I had a friend like that, and he would always make like homophobic jokes or like weird sexist jokes, and he'd act offended by certain things. And he hit on me, and he would say all this, and it was like, what we as a group of my friends and I, we'd be like, what's wrong with you? Like, what, why do you? And he ended up with one of my guy friends who actually liked him. This was this gay guy, and they became friends. They ended up living with each other. And the other guy, first guy, he was an abusive lover. Like, he beat the shit out of his lover. And later on, he goes, "You're right. I'm sorry," because I called him out on it. It's like, you're violent and shit, dude, and this and that. So it's just, I learned that a long time ago. That the most homophobic people and hateful people probably have some part of them that is curious, or that is, attracted to the opposite sex, and they can't fucking deal with it because they're afraid of like society, because they've been told that it's bad, and it's like.
Yeah, and the ultimate spoiler alert. But if you remember, DM, the movie American Beauty in the late '90s.
That's it right there.
Personified in the military character. That took such an anti-gay stance.
Yeah, he's freaking.
She was always, she was kidding. You're not gay, are you? You're not gay, are you? I know that was a profound theme in that movie. In the end, he swaps or tries to kiss Kevin Spacey in the end.
Right.
Perfect representation of that type of character, overzealous, but really hiding skeletons in the closet.
Like super hyper masculinity. What's that? Toxic masculinity. And you'll find in the military there's lots of sexual assault for men and women, and gay people and trans people, and it's like nothing. It's like this weird culture. We can talk about the military later, but it's just, same thing with cops. There's a big stigma where, and when I was in Chicago, you'd always hear about like gay bashings from cops. Like, there's a precinct on Halstead, which is like the heart of Boys Town, which is the gay man neighborhood, and there's a police station there. And I swear to God, does anybody feel like safe to go? I've been attacked. It was like the cops be like, I don't give a shit, like, I'll do it myself. It's just. I've seen it. I've witnessed them attack people, and it's just crazy. And all of that, it's just basically going. I can't deal with like us moving forward, and because pretty soon, within the next 10 years or so, there's just going to be this like change of attitude with the generations, because it's going to be like, I don't understand you. I went to high school with people. I knew people. I had to work with people. I did all this stuff. And it's like everything you hate is just not true. Like we have relatives that are gay. Like, I have bosses that were gay. Like, I work for Starbucks, and it was like gay as hell. I worked with a lot of gay people and learned a lot about gay culture there. Made a lot of friends. I mean, dude, I worked at a restaurant one time, and I call it my gay, education when I moved to Chicago. I worked with this one woman from Kentucky, straight up Southerner. She was in transition, going through the surgeries, and this was '96, and I'm not saying she was perfect. Like, she was obnoxious because she still was very Southern. And so a year later, I saw her, and I was alone for Christmas. It's like my first year in Chicago. I was by myself, and I didn't have to work, and I was walking and I saw her and she invited me in and we hung out for Christmas, you know, and just ate, drank coffee and watched TV, talked, and it was cool. And it was just like, you know, it's just fear, man. It's all about fear and not being able to just move on. Like it's like these people want to have gay and trans people as their enemy. They need a fucking enemy. They can't just like move on like, hey, peace and love. Like we can evolve as a country and as a people. Just get the fuck over it.
And people have been friends with, if anybody who's like that, guarantee you they've been friends or known someone been friendly with, been helped by or helped somebody that was gay and didn't know it, because not every gay person wears a sign saying that I'm gay. Not everyone talks the same way. Not everyone dresses the same way.
Right.
And guess what? There's gay Republicans too.
The log cabin Republicans.
Happens. And the thing is about this, getting back to our woke conversation here. That doesn't mean having an awareness. Doesn't mean you buy Bud Light because there's a trans person representing it. Doesn't mean you have to go out and you have to know every acronym of every representation in the growing list of letters in the LGBTQ, because it keeps growing. Doesn't mean you have to go out and see a bunch of movies. Doesn't mean that you have to like or love or anything. All it means is having tolerance and an understanding of other, because there's other people living in the country. All right, and then they're not evil, and that they're not, out to get you or get your kids.
Right.
Their agenda is just like you and me and everyone else, is to go to work, to have a partner, a loving partner, to have a nice life.
Yeah.
And guess what? For all the people that in the hierarchy, as far as like people that make how much money people make. The gay people are on top. I mean, they have the wealthiest, most successful genre of people in the workforce, contributing a lot to a lot of different companies in many different ways.
Right.
The food chain is what I meant to say.
Yeah.
They're the top of the food chain when it comes to professional, their professions, their skills. They've been a part of the country for a long time. Guess what? They've been a part of the world as long as the world has been around. And there's animals that are gay. It is here to stay. It cannot be exercised out of somebody. And it's that's the whole thing, is to be offensive, to act like it's like something that needs to be removed from somebody, or somebody that needs. The whole thing is, being woke means understanding these people are not going to stay in the closet. They want to be heard. They want to be seen. They want to mingle. They want to mix. They want to be a part of our fucking society that they've helped fight for and work with their entire lives.
Right.
They don't want to be shut out. They don't want to be silenced. And they don't want to be threatened.
They don't need to be either.
And the time has come to start to come down hard as far as, all of these things should be considered hate crimes.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if they are, but, we really have to put a stop to this and ingratiate all the people that are in the this culture of people in America, so that we can all be as united as possible. What do you say? Do you want to move on to the second group that we're talking about in woke ideology, which would be dealing with issues of racism, and specifically the Black Lives Matter? I'm sure you have plenty to say about the subject, especially with what's happened the last couple of years. But let me just say one thing as we get into this, and I'll give you a lot of time on this. One of the things I thought that was the most disgusting was people going after football players for kneeling during the
Colin Kaepernick issue.
Right. One thing that was disgusting, number one, is in a game having to launch into the Star Spangled Banner. Like, if you do that and you put the flag up and we're supposed to be patriotic and it's a big jingoistic moment, guess what? Some of the people that have experienced something different in this whole journey through America are going to have some different things to say. Never mind the fact that the original Star Spangled Banner was less than inclusive.
Right.
With all different kinds of other groups, they had to actually omit some of the lyrics from it to make it not disgusting.
Right.
But to turn it around and say that it's about hatred for military, hatred for police, hatred for this country, instead of listening, it's people creating their own narrative, what they think it's about, rather than people that are actually initiating the movement in the first damn place. I mean, how stupid can you be? They're saying it's about, officers killing in an inordinate amount of unarmed black people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can take two different situations where somebody of a different race would be just detained, handcuffed, put into a car, and another one that ends with somebody kneeling on their neck for something like food stamps.
Yeah.
Abusing food stamps, and next thing you know, somebody's dead.
Right.
That's the first thing that I've always wanted to voice my disgust at how disgusted I was with people going after. Yeah. It's the epitome of being blind. The opposite of being woke is misrepresenting that stance right there, that movement that was about something very specific. What do you think?
So the fact that Colin Kaepernick lost his entire career and became a civil rights icon in the past, like in the 2000s, is frustrating. Even to this day, like the dude, he could still be signed to a team and play ball, but it's becoming there's less and less of opportunity because, football players have a short lifespan in football.
Right.
But the point is, it's like you just made this guy an icon. You made him a fucking hero. And all he's saying is like, I'm just tired of black folks being systematically murdered by cops. And it's like, football and sports are so important to this country. They're like, oh no, man, you're talking shit. And the whole thing was combining football with the military. That's a newer thing. Before, it wasn't like that. Like, they didn't have that shit at games. Like, it wasn't so jingoistic. That became a newer thing, I think, under more so under Bush. But
oh yeah, after 9/11, probably.
Right, like just everything went full on, jingoistic, and so
come together.
Right, but it doesn't, and yeah, not everybody has the same feeling about this flag, and especially non-white people, especially Native Americans and black folks, and Latinos. It's like, are you serious? Like, so the experience for us, like, when I was younger, my mom one time was driving in a 55. She's driving like 65 because she had to haul ass to Sears to get something. And then she gets pulled over and she starts cursing out the cop. And I didn't know that, as a kid, I didn't know.
Did she get pulled out of the car?
No.
There are 3 cop cars there.
Dude, she can run her.
Going through her trunk.
Right.
Tearing her car apart.
Running her mouth, like just yelling at the cop. I've yelled at cops. I'm like, fuck you, man. Like, what's going on? Questioning them. They don't do anything to me. I never worried about them touching me. And so it's like, I have my own experiences. I don't need to watch TV, and I could give you experiences of my own where how the cops treat black folks differently. And then on the other hand, I have all my friends who are black of different economic status, of different, men, women, black gay people, like all these different people I've known over my life, and they all have similar stories where it's like they don't have anything positive to say about the cops because they rarely have had positive interactions with the cops. It's a scary fucking thing. And it's like, literally, thank God for, cell phones, or we wouldn't see the exact detail. Even that video camera that got Rodney King. It's like they beat his ass almost to death for speeding while they're telling race jokes over the fucking PA, over their PA. And it's like we just live in
they expect that there's going to be zero blowback when people riot. Like, what is this? What is going on? And now, of course, peaceful protest is always the best. I'm not advocating for riots.
But what do you expect, though? I mean,
that's the point.
Yeah, I agree with it.
There's going to be blowback.
I'm like, the reason we had so many protests is that it's like the average human being, and then it's not just black folks who get, there are a lot of white people and younger people in those protests, and they were like 97% peaceful with like infiltrators that come in. You find out there were cops, there were FBI agents, there's like all these things Republicans complain about. They did it to the Black Lives Matter protesters. And the Black Lives Matter, like that's the thing, they assume that all the members are black. And it's like, I think we're getting to
a lot of white people.
A lot of white people.
Shirts.
Middle-aged white people. In Portland, you had those moms that made a line. You had that white veteran standing in front of a cop. They're just wondering what's going on. And they always use that as an example. It's like, you don't even understand. They always complain about the after effect of like something going on. You don't want to go to the root cause of it. If you study the history of law enforcement, originally cops were slave catchers. There's no like honorable thing about law enforcement. The only thing honorable is now, and is if you happen to catch somebody a cop who did the right thing. It's like, oh my God, what a moment. But for the most part, yeah, it's just like it's turned this thing, and I've gotten arguments with people and shit. People ask me, well, what's it mean? And it's like for some white people, and I'm only saying because I'm white, and I've had these interactions with people, and like they just don't quite understand, and they can't believe, well, I've been attacked by cops. Dude, have you been scared? You know, like
yeah. Sure, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead, mate. I was going to say, an important point that I wanted to get into is the confusion about the title Black Lives Matter, because I was talking to a family member of mine, older, an uncle of mine, who said, oh, that's ridiculous, Black Lives Matter, all lives matter. And it's like, you're not getting the point of that. If there's one group of people that feel that they're being discriminated against and unfairly killed, basically, for the same, in the same instances where other people are not, it makes them feel like their lives don't matter. Is there a question, Sean, that white lives matter?
Never.
Do we have a question? Does anybody have to actually fucking question that in this country?
Right.
The thing that we would have to question is, are people that, that have gone through what we're talking about, do their lives matter? What is it? It's them saying to you, this is how I feel. I feel like my life doesn't matter because of how you treat me. Look at everything that's happened, how you respond. Every time we go through these indecencies and feel like we're not a proper part of society, when just like we talked about the last group, gay people have been parts that they've fought in wars. They've worked in our factories, and they've been teachers and science and that is as much a part of our culture as anybody, and yet they have not gotten their just desserts the same way that other groups have, and it makes them feel like they don't matter as much. Can you get that? What
kills me is like when they bring the military. Well, my dad served, and it's like, did your dad also call the black soldiers the N-word when they were fighting in World War II? Because that's what happened a lot. The Nazis couldn't even believe. The Russians during the Cold War couldn't believe how Americans treated black people, and the Nazis, during the Olympics, you had a Nazi runner who saw Jesse Owens, and he was so like honored, and like he realized he was brainwashed, that he went and he became friends with Jesse Owens, the black runner who fucking humiliated Hitler after Hitler gave him a monkey picture. Like that's the thing. It's like
guy's a hero.
Yeah.
You talking about him, Jackie Robinson?
I mean, dude, to the point where it's just like you don't even look at their accomplishments under what they did. There's that movie 42 about Jackie Robinson, and it's like they wouldn't let him. And then there's a scene where he's getting like fucking racially abused by a fucking white coach. And it's like the dude had to sit there and take it because our society wouldn't let him. Like you had the fucking people in the audience yelling at him, calling the N-word and all this horrible shit. And it's like white people, we won't even understand that. We get so many things, so many fucking like little things that were designed for us to succeed in this country. And it's like the Black Panthers came up with fucking food programs, lunch programs, and public clinics. Guess what? If I didn't have that shit, I'd be fucked up. I was poor when I was younger. A lot of kids were. And it's like, I just don't, that's the thing that frustrates me. And it's like you have the Klan and racist organizations seeped within law enforcement and the military. And it's like there's this two-sided country where like there's There's what we get to experience, and there's what everybody else gets to experience. And it's like it's disgusting. You can't.
Yeah, two different freedoms.
You can't. People don't. We'll never deal with this issue because they don't ever want to talk about it. Because like from my experience, white people always have this, like, not all white people, not generalizing, but in my experience, the reaction always is like, well, I'm not a bad guy. I'm not. It's like we're not talking about you, man. We're talking about a fucking society and a system created so we win and everybody else doesn't, unless you fucking pass, you know.
Yeah, and also too, if there's somebody saying that, like, hey, like, if somebody feels like they're the target, and this is all about being woke, is understanding where people are coming from. If
right.
you are an honorable white person,
right,
that does understand, and you know, if you feel tired, I mean, I live in Chicago,
mm-hmm.
where white people are the minority, and there's times where I've felt like finger pointed at me, like I'm a part of the general society that
right.
doesn't understand, and I'm like, you know, it makes me feel like the people that are pointing their finger at me, like, well, you're no different than the people that did it to you.
Right.
Like, if you turn around and try to say that I'm just like, you know, so there is generalisms going around on
sure.
both sides, but if you are somebody that gets targeted, that gets, you know, you feel like people are not properly representing you, like, I understand. And I just would try to say to, you know, realize that there's nothing you can do in that situation. I mean, you can try to fight somebody. I wouldn't advise that, but it's really kind of the hatred that comes back against more people than it should. It's very hard to pinpoint. And the thing is that the people that, I've always said this, the people that are getting the bottom end of the stick, they can't get to the people that are on the top CEOs, leaders in government,
right.
Leaders in the military. They're far, far away from all this. They won't be touched ever. And that's what the disgusting part is. You know what it does? At least people like you and me and anybody else there that might feel like that sometimes, to deal with the aftermath of hatred that gets unfairly propagated against us. But guess what? You know who I blame more than the person that's pointing their finger at me? I look up to the people that created us in
right.
the first fucking place
exactly.
and say, thanks a lot. Thanks for leaving me with the aftermath of something that you created that I don't
right.
even believe in. And for all these fucking people, for all these and it sounds like we're just coming down against white people, but I'm just saying, for all these white people, all these that are making the rules and doing this, good luck, because in the years that come, all you're doing is sowing the seeds of hatred for your own generations to come.
Right.
So that in the future, they're going to have to deal with your
kids, the kids
bullshit, and they're going to deal with the hatred that you created in the first place.
Right. I mean, seriously, it's like, can you imagine being like a Southern kid and it's like you're trying to be in the modern world, and then it's like you meet somebody, you're a white kid, you meet somebody who's not white, who's black, who's Latino, who's whatever, you're gay, and you go home and it's like your family is like, it's embarrassing you. I'm embarrassed by my family. You know, I wouldn't ever want to take my wife to, because I don't want to sit there and hear like the anti-Semitic jokes and all, you know, and discussions of racism at the dinner table. And it's like this, I swear to God, it's this generation, that our generation and the ones before us, they created this system. And it's like, it's fucking frustrating. I get really, because that's the first thing I think of is if somebody says something and I fucked up them, thinking like, thanks a fucking lot, dick. Thanks a fucking lot, because I'm just trying to live in this world, and it's like, you know, the most I get, my heart breaks, man, because I'm embarrassed of that shit, and I hate that. The thing I fucking disdain is fucking racist, fascism, hatred and shit, and it's like you I feel as me as a white person, this is my own personal attitude, is it's my responsibility to do the right thing. There's so many times in history that white people just stand there. And I'm not saying everybody does that either. The more people stand up and freak out now. And a lot of times they're white people. But the point is, like, as a society, we got to change, because it's like, do you like that? Do you like hearing that dumb shit that doesn't even make sense anymore? There's some racist shit that we've evolved so much, though, that people don't even understand that's racist anymore. Like Like your wife would tell me some of the shit that she had to deal with, that she didn't even know were racist terms until she like talked to me about it. And I'd be like, wow, I'd never even heard that. And it's like, there's all these things we don't even know, that because our society was built on hatred and racism, that it's like you and I wouldn't know some of the things that our grandparents had seen or said and all that shit. My mom surprised me with some shit that she said, you know, and it's so we have to evolve. That's the whole point, and that's what these people don't want to do. Like, it's not just white people, man. There's like black conservatives, there's gay, trans conservatives, and Nazis. Nazis come in all shapes, shades, religions. There's Jewish Nazis now, and they all, which I really don't understand, is like, you know, like you said, poor white people who vote against their own interests. So it's like their white face can be represented. You get fucked too. You're the first ones they throw in the military and throw into a war. You come back traumatized and wondering, what did I do this for? It's like the same fucking thing. It's economic too.
Yeah, there is a bit of self-hatred. Like, basically, if you look at different races, we'll talk about black versus white. We'll move on from black versus white and talk about other
it's
things.
Deeper.
But about black versus white, you mentioned my wife, who is a lawyer, who is black, who used to basically, if you take the low-educated, bottom dweller, lowest common denominator, they'll be as racist or more racist than white people. They would say to her, I don't want a black person representing me. I want a white person. Because they think in their minds, white people are smart and black people are not. And there's the old joke by Chris Rock. He says, his joke is, who's more racist, white people or black people? And he says black people, because
the old black man,
people too.
Yeah.
The whole thing. So, I mean, there's, you know, I can't talk too much about that being an outsider, but there's a lot of hatred going around. And you know, besides, of course, black people, as we mentioned earlier, Asians have certainly come under fire and gotten a lot of unnecessary things thrown at them after COVID. The douchebag in charge does not, the ex, who hopefully will be the douchebag in prison pretty soon,
I hope so.
did not help by calling it the Kung Flu. But you know, since you know, after COVID, certainly there's a lot of hatred espoused towards Asian people in general, and of course after 9/11, anytime there's a big something big happens in this country, if it's either perpetrated or proposed to be perpetrated by another country, certainly the people that are here, that are living, you know, contributing citizens, all of a sudden have to go on the run and all of a sudden have to watch their backs, even though they, like, all these people that supposedly were friends with them before and all this lifestyle that they like, all of a sudden it gets turned upside down because of something they had nothing to do with.
Right.
And after 9/11, it was Middle Eastern people.
Right.
I remember going into work the day after 9/11 and a manager in my company was calling every swear word that you could think of towards Middle Eastern people.
And it was all perfectly
okay. You know what I mean?
Right, and it was perfectly accepted.
Yeah. So there's, and all of the disgusting part is all of the progress that we have made. We have made a lot of progress. There's a big difference now. And you and I were talking about the Civil Rights Act of 1964. It was 1964, 60 years ago, exactly 60 years ago, the Civil Rights Act, which guaranteed black people the right to vote. That's not too long ago when you talk about the history of our country. We're 300 years old or however old we are. Right. So, you know, we got one more group to talk about here. Jim, if you want to add any last things about the our second group here, you can before we move on to group number 3.
Just to say, there's this comedian who's Muslim. I believe he's Pakistani, but you know, during 9/11, like he had to deal with a lot of like racial hatred, which we don't talk about, like that aspect of 9/11 either. Is like what Muslims had to deal with. I was one time I was driving in a cab with my girlfriend at the time. She was going to the airport, And this was right after, like, this was 2 weeks after 9/11 when they started letting people fly again. And my ex is going, and I said to this guy, like, I told him, because the fucking, they were dragging, like, if you look like you were of Middle Eastern descent or Indian or Pakistani or whatever, you were going to get fucked with so bad, or if not threatened or killed. And there was a lot of hate crimes. And I saw this, I told the cab driver, I go, look, man, I want to tell you this. I don't hate you at all, and I'm sorry you're going through this. And he was like, he started to tear up, and I gave him a big hug, and, like, I just want to know, like, not all of us, like, are that way. We're not all hateful people. And I can't imagine the terror and the feeling and the fear, like, you're trying to be a cab driver, live your life. You came here, which not a lot of us even understand if you're not from another country, what that is like, and especially if you're not a white person, to go. And then it's like, now you're the target. And so it's just like, it's scary, and it's like, it's getting old, and it's like, it's just another aspect of growth. So.
Yeah. And, we don't mean to undermine anybody else's heritage as far as not including them. I'm sure there's lots of people who experienced all kinds of hatred in different ways, shapes, and forms, even to the smallest extent where I was talking with UDM about growing up in high school back in the 90s, early 90s. So I had long hair. Sure. And I was kept off sports teams. We couldn't get a job. People were like, nope, if you represent something I don't like.
Right.
So you can actually hit people. It doesn't just stop at color of skin. It can go. You let that stuff fester, it'll go down to eye color, hair color,
right.
The size, how long you grow your nails, anything.
Yeah.
It'll go to as far as people will want to take it. You'd be surprised how far people want to take it.
Not nowadays, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we're moving on to group number 3, which is the Me Too movement, which was certainly a long time coming in America, pretty much like every other group that we're talking about here. Now, the thing is that I'm using the Me Too movement. We are using it as a symbol of sexism, sort of, that women have been rebelling against. I know in the Me Too movement, it was mostly aimed at the workplace.
Right.
And I can't, all the stuff, DM, I'm sure you have your own stories.
Mm-hmm.
The stuff that I've seen and heard and witnessed, wives, daughters, sisters, mothers, the stuff that they've had to go through when they're just trying to show up to work. I'm not saying that none of it is welcomed. I know that, maybe some of it seems to be welcomed because they feel like they have to not get fired or to not get discriminated against further or whatever. But I know that I've seen some pretty just disgusting male behavior in the workplace. And joking is one thing.
Oh, my God.
But when you talk about physical contact and singling women out, if you have like one girl working if it's a factory environment or whatever the environment is, the smaller the number that you have and the more you can be pointed out and singled out, I'm sure the more you feel that sort of disgusting, like you said, toxicity around you, men that think that they can touch you a certain way, even rub up against you, all different little things that just I couldn't imagine, all of, like I said, either my mother or my different female family members having to go through at one point or another.
Right.
And so let's start off there. So, Deanne, what do you have to say about people being woke as far as how you treat women in the workplace and maybe in general after that?
Right. So it's another case of evolving. It's like and I just say one thing. I grow the fuck up. It's it's just like it's like men.
Isn't it childish behavior?
It is. I was like, so and it's like it became this like boiling point, where you had it started off where like one woman texts something in response, and I think it wasn't it what's his name that sparked it, Harvey Weinstein?
Oh, Weinstein.
Because you find out him, and then you find out like what's going on with like the entertainment industry. I mean, they mostly talked about workplace shit, but like when you expand it to different kinds of jobs or different dynamics. Like I grew up in Alaska. Alaska's like called the last frontier. It is the last frontier, and it's a weird place because I grew up with actually a lot of women who are fish captains, boat captains, like of course teachers and medicine. But it's like, you know, my mom ran my house. Like she raised me. My dad didn't do shit. He expected respect, but he never gave it. And he was a sexist douche. On my dad's side, you know, the men were all, you know, literally all my uncles were sexist douchebags. And, you know, so it's like, it's just weird, but think about it, you know, and it's not just men. There are women who tolerate this shit too, because you'll find out, I saw this, the movie about Harvey Weinstein, and his associates who are women would bring people in, bring the women in, have them sit,
to him, right?
Right. And then, so it has this like, well, it's okay. Jeffrey Epstein's, you know, Ghislaine Maxwell, woman, helped him do that, was cool with it, lured people in. And it's this like acceptable factor. What? Yeah.
To piggyback off of that, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of a sort of like Stockholm syndrome case.
Yeah.
Many cases where I heard this whole Reddit podcast about people in prison, basically sex trafficking, like couples.
Yeah.
Not just a single guy, couples kidnapping a woman. Now, the woman, it could not happen without the wife of the guy to help lure in. Women are much easier, they trust women more than men. It could be, you know, a woman could lure in another woman much easier than a man. But guess what? The woman that is doing it is many times so scared, and I'm not saying there's other cases other than that. The ones that I've read about, the wives and things are so scared that they're like, okay, if I bring someone else in, will you not do this to me, or will you not, they'll say, sure, they'll make some sort of agreement. I actually read one the other day where this woman was kept captive in the basement of a guy's house. The wife was in on it, but what happened is the wife was the one that eventually set the woman free when the guy left to go to work. After so many years, she says, I can't take it anymore, and it's brainwashing.
Yeah.
So that's what the whole thing was that the wives were being brainwashed.
Right.
Anyway, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I need to add to that. Think about the Manson family. Who did the majority of the murders? They're women.
Yeah, the women, yeah. They were certainly involved.
Right. So it's just, you know, it's, I mean, even, you know, and I think religion has somewhat, a lot to do with it. My mom's attitude about, you know, she had the attitude that men took care of everything and blah, 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 even though a man never did shit for her. Well, she was raising me. And I noticed there's a lot of, growing up over the years, you know, in high school and grade school, there are a lot of divorced families. And the mom is the one taking care of it, you know, like taking care of the household while the man took off. You know, David Cross, the comedian, was talking about how his dad...
That can be an epidemic in some families.
Right, and it's just like, so the women are raising the children, and yet men are like, I'm the dominant, I'm the man. It's like, where the fuck are you, man? You know, like Mr. Tough Guy. Like, so, and you grow up with this, and you hear your friends over repeating this shit, your male friends, you know, I mean, there's... It's just fucked up. And, you know, you could say Me Too, like you could, the thing, and this is specific to men, but like, we don't have a proper, estimate of like how many men get raped here because of that same attitude, where it's like, I can't reveal this because I'll look like, you know, I'm weak.
Oh, well, it's even worse.
Right.
Men are so much more scared and humiliated to admit that it happened. By the way, you've heard, we're going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here, but the singer for Warrant, you heard about that?
Janie Lane.
Yeah. Who said that he was raped, he was drugged
Did not know
and
that.
raped in the early 80s by a quote-unquote major heavy metal star.
Why not?
So who knows who did that? And he would not divulge. His girlfriend was the one that said it.
Oh.
He wouldn't divulge the name because he was too. His wife, was the one that said it. Said it plagued him his entire life. It was something he never got over, and he wouldn't say who did it because he didn't want the story to come out. Because he was too humiliated about it.
Right.
Now I have no idea who it was. What's unfortunate is that I immediately think of a few people. But who knows who it was? It was a major heavy metal star in the early to mid 80s. It happened, whatever, I think 85 or something. So anyway, yeah, it does happen to men.
Dude,
too.
we could, well, so for me personally, it's like, the music industry, and we could apply this with hip hop and rap music, heavy metal music, punk rock music. There's all these stories, and I grew up and it was glorified to be a sexist dog, right? Like, it's glorified to get as much, to fuck as much women and to do it like a fucking savage. Oh yeah.
And then you gotta leave. Time to move on.
Right, and then
I hit the road. That's
right,
my life.
Right, and so it's like you have a lot of like kids who grew up without dads because they left out, and it's that attitude. And the same thing with the military. There's all these soldiers that go over and they fuck everybody and then leave.
Right.
But
it was rampant. To continue on that point.
Yeah.
It was rampant in the 60s. The whole flower people, hippie child movement.
Sure.
It was all about peace is better than war.
Right.
Love is better than hate. You love your brother. You bring him in. You don't discriminate against. You know what was still rampant in the hippie culture? Misogyny.
Yeah, that's the other.
Talk about John Lennon, Mick Jagger, Robert Plant, Eric Clapton, Rod Stewart. You name all of the major, and that's all it was. It was all about tag it, bag it, how many you can get. John Lennon, of course, famously was a deadbeat dad to his first wife.
Yeah, Sean Lennon said, like, fuck this. Not Sean, Julian. He was like, fuck my dad. Yeah. He's a douche. Anyway, to add to that, Frank Sinatra, I mean, he's calling his wife, while she's having the baby while he's fucking some other chick. And, I mean, this is, Johnny Cash left his first family to go be with his other family and, like, fucked all his, fucked over his first family. I mean, it's this, you can almost, Bob Marley, I love Bob Marley. Dude had two separate families.
Oh, my God.
I love Bob Marley, all right?
He's continued the same thing.
Like, you see all these Marleys and, like, you see a song and it's like, damn. And there's, come on, like, how many Marleys? I'm not saying that there's not a lot, but I'm like, you can guarantee it's like a Marley.
You know who his son was married to? Ziggy was married to, what's her name, from the Fugees.
Oh, no, it wasn't Ziggy.
He's got multiple wives.
It's not Ziggy. It's I think it's Damien.
Okay, it's one of them.
Right? Yeah.
And she's like a brainwashed sort of like, oh, I'm just one of his wives, and like she kind of tries to take a stance, like a humanitarian stance on different things, and it's like, why don't you start with your own family first?
Well,
it's kind of like when John Lennon talks about like love around the world, and it's like,
what about your own family?
Of course you can do it, but what about your own family? It makes you look like a hypocrite.
Right. So it's. I just say it's a rarity. Like now, my attitude is like I want to find people in history, in all these different subjects, who wasn't a piece of shit, like father, who wasn't a bigot. Like that's the fucking true treasure. But like Jesus, if you're a Christian, Jesus was a fucking badass. All his first like fucking, and I'm not religious, but it's like when you keep hearing about Jesus, it's like, okay, do you really look at this guy? He was a feminist. He felt that women, the prostitutes, were his first flock. Like they're the first ones to spread the word. All the fucking apostles are like, I don't know, man. What about the gay people? What about this and that? And he's like, you guys are fucking not even getting what I'm saying. So when he died, his first messengers were all like the prostitutes, because they were like, fuck, those are my people. I love you. So you take it up to now, and it's like, I watched this one movie about Gloria Steinem, and it took place in the States. So it wasn't just about her; it was about that year in '73 when they were voting on women's equal rights. And it's like the main concern, Florence Flatchley, I think that's her name. Anyway, she couldn't go anywhere. She didn't even know how to she couldn't travel or do anything because she needed her husband's help, because women weren't allowed to get licenses or not licensed, but they couldn't drive by themselves. They couldn't buy things by themselves. They couldn't get a credit card by themselves. And when I found that out, I was like, I don't get it. Like, I just, and it's like, so how's that working out? Like, you're going to let a man run everything? Have you seen how we're doing right now? Have you seen the planet? Like, it's majority run by males. You know, so.
And it seems like one of the first power tactics that women took and ran with was within the family structure.
Yeah.
And it's divorce. And it basically was, in the 1950s, the divorce rate was like, what, 15%, 20%, was so low. Because basically, whatever the situation was, you were expected to take it. And society would basically, you'd be a castaway in a society if you were a single woman or a divorcee.
Right.
Especially if you were a divorcee and you left your family.
Oh my God!
But eventually, it became sort of like, you know what? I'm not going to take it anymore.
Right.
And I can get a job, and I can actually, I can build my own family, and I can take care of myself. That actually right now, women are a bigger part of the workforce than men.
Dude, I've had 3 bosses that were women at my job. Like, I've had, like, I work with majority women. Like, I've worked in a lot of businesses where, like, the workforce were women. And it's like,
not even close. It's like 60. It's not even like a 50.2 to a 49.8. It's like 60% to 40% as far as, like, women versus men in the workforce. And in my industry, boy, working in hospitals and stuff, it's way more than that, especially in administration.
Right.
So I'm very aware of that. It's something that is going in the right direction when we talk about women's rights, either in the workplace, women's rights in society, women's rights in being people that are considered leaders.
Yeah.
Right? Because women was always like, you're on the side of your man. You're not out in front.
Right.
And there's plenty of women these days that are in the front. And I'm not talking about, beta men that don't have anything going for them. There's plenty of men with plenty of things going for them. But guess what? The wives might rock a little bit more. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, in my personal life, all the most, and I can include my mom in this, for basic human compassion. Like, when my mom was younger growing up, she was actually a very compassionate person and taught me that. Like, she would, one time we helped this one Mexican woman with her family do something. She helped this other, woman, I think she was Native, helped her, did this. And so my mom, through example, like, taught me to be compassionate. Don't just sit there, help somebody. And then secondly, I had a woman who was Apache growing up. She told me about the Black Panthers. My special ed teacher, basically was the first, like, person to teach me about, like, she would videotape, or she had a video recording of her two nieces getting married, or her niece getting married to another woman. And so it's like, I've had all the biggest influences on my life to direct me for morals and, like, a moral compass were women. Like, most men, I admit.
When I was young, it was the same thing too, where I think my dad was there for, like, sports stuff and for the, work stuff for them. But, when it came to, I remember going to a hotel, and gross story, but anyway, I clipped my nails, and they fell on the floor, and my mom was like, hey, pick those up. I'm like, why? The maid will come in and do it. She just looked at me and said, pick those up right now. Wow. Yeah, and I was like, okay. And it was like, those are kind of things that, it's a lot of times people that have been treated a certain way or being put in a certain place can have a little bit more compassion and feeling towards other people that aren't in positions of power.
Right. Right. My your wife through my later years was a big, influence on me. I always think of like there'll be certain things going on, and especially legal. I miss her for that, but she would just cut the bullshit and then break shit down for me. I had my first adult love taught me to stand up and do what's right, and she was big, even though she wasn't the best person, but I got a lot of good lessons from her, and it was all about standing up and doing the right thing. She would break it down. I just have had a lot of positive female influences, and it's just I kind of already, not that I'm saying I know everything and I'm worldly, because I'm far from that, but I kind of got the idea when I was younger, and especially when I moved to Chicago, when I started working with a lot of women, I'd meet a lot of women, going to Columbia, friends, and you just start meeting all different age groups, this and that, and it was always a woman who was willing to show me stuff. And dudes, it's always this competition, or you always get this funky attitude like it's another man in the area, so I got to compete for this and that. It's just weird. It's just
some kind of weenie contest.
Yeah, and going back to even meeting you, if somebody doesn't know you or whatever, they could just assume, well, he's just like this metal sports guy. So if they meet me and they think, well, he's just a dude. He's just a guy who likes music.
Tattoos.
Huh?
With tattoos.
With tattoos. So you're assuming that, like, you're not capable of having an intelligent conversation about, like, sexism, race, and all. You're just some dude from the suburbs or whatever, and, and then I'm some guy, just a guy. Like, I'm, like, I what would I know, this and that. And it's like, I like having that, because then people are, like, surprised. And pleasantly surprised at how, cool you are. And so I think it makes for a better, like, a man. And I hate saying that shit now because it's just been destroyed, but it's like, to me, a real man is gentle, strong. He doesn't have to flex shit ever. He just, you do the right thing. You be calm, you listen, you try to do the right thing. You try to be, not equal, but you try to be fair as a person. You treat people right. You pay back your debts. If you're a boss, like, you pay everybody equally. Just on and on. Like, just to be honest, and to be fair, like I said, and it's just there's talk about that. There's this rejuvenation of sexism, especially right now. There's a guy, Andrew Tate. You have Candace Owens, the biggest sellout in Black history. She's a huge, not just a bigot, but she's also a huge, like, sexist. And you hear these weird, like, there's these weird groups. There's this other chick who, this woman, she's in her 20s, and I can't remember her name, but she just got burned on Pierce Morgan because it's like she tried to present her sexist attitude, like women shouldn't have to vote. Women should just, they're better at just staying home and all this bullshit. And it's like these people are crazy.
Speak for yourself.
Right. And I'm just like, are you fucking high? Like, and it's just bizarre. And it's like half the time thinking like, that's bullshit. And you would not want to be a stay-at-home wife. Like, you want to go out and do shit. But with that shit, they're spreading this, like, fucking this bullshit, this brainwashing bullshit. And it's like, are you serious? Like, I could never tell my daughters, hey, you should just say, they would tell me to fuck off. My oldest is a short woman, and she's the one that handles all her work situation when it comes to obnoxious dudes coming in and trying to they send her. They don't send a dude. They send a woman. They send her to go handle obnoxious people. Like, I just, Yeah,
because she probably has a little more tolerance or patience.
Right. And then you look at other cultures, and, like, so, for instance, my wife's culture, the Tlinkits, and a lot of native culture, it's it's is it matriarch? What's the woman, female? Is that
matriarch?
It's a matriarchal society. Her grandma was like she was the mother of the family. They went for her for leadership. She was the queen, you know, and she handled it. And it's like, you know, same thing was like traditional Jewish culture. It's like your mom has to be born Jewish to be, you know, considered Jewish, and like women ran the fucking thing. And it's just ridiculous, and it's just not realistic. Behind everything, you'll find it's the woman running things. Like it's the older shit, the older men, the older, you know, legacy wealth. That's maybe, you know, a man thing, but for the most part, women run a lot of fucking our society and are taking care of shit, and you know, and make it so like what's great, what's remaining that's great, maintains and continues.
Yeah, I think we can say that it's safe to say that the contributions that women have made to the world and to help us as men be better and to make us happy and to basically be the women that we love and that we always remember is something so important that it's important to give the respect back to people that give their lives to you and to you know, help you make everything you can be. And whether or not it's all of these groups that we're talking about today, this is going to conclude our discussion on woke ideology. You know, all of these groups, basically, what we're saying is that, sure, there's a creepy people in all walks of life. That's the point, though, is that that's when you're treating people equal, when you treat people with respect until they don't deserve your respect.
Right.
And that's the reason why you don't like someone, not because they're gay, not because they're a woman, not because of their skin color, but because of, as OK said, the content of their character.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, hey, thank you for joining us. We're the Masterblasterpodcasters. This is Geeziz, dirtymouf. We thank you for joining us. Please, we're newbies here. We're on Podbean right now. We welcome you to give us comments, feedback. We will be doing subjects at least once a week. Again, we're going to come up with a schedule. We will apprise you of our future episodes, what we're going to be talking about. Certainly there will be political in nature. Sometimes we do album reviews and such. So on behalf of dirtymouf, I say thank you very much. We'll see you next time. And DM, if you could, let's convene for a few moments after we stop the recording, okay?
Boom.
Cool.
All right.